peace be upon you all. As narrated by Shu'aib. I asked Az-Zuhri, did the Prophet ever offer the fear prayer? Az-Zuhri said, I was told by Salim that Abdullah bin Umar I had said, I took part in a holy battle with Allah's apostle one in Najd. We faced the enemy and arranged ourselves in rows. Then Allah's apostle, p.b.u.h, stood up to lead the prayer and one party stood to pray with him while the other faced the enemy. Allah's apostle, p.b.u.h, and the former party bowed and performed 2 prostrations. Then that party left and took the place of those who had not prayed. Allah's apostle prayed 1 rakah with the latter, and performed 2 prostrations and finished his prayer with taslim. Then every one of them bowed once and performed 2 prostrations individually. Volume 2, Book 14, number 65, narrated by Nafi ibn Umar said something similar to Mujahid's saying, whenever Muslims and non-Muslims stand face to face in battle, the Muslims can pray while standing. Ibn Umar added, the Prophet said if the number of the enemy is greater than the Muslims they can pray while standing or riding individually. Volume 2, Book 14, number 66, narrated by Ibn Abbas. Once the Prophet, p.b.u.h, led the fear prayer and the people stood behind him. He said Takbir, Allahu Akbar, and the people said the same. He bowed and some of them bowed. Then he prostrated and they also prostrated. Then he stood for the 2nd rakah and those who had prayed the 1st rakah left and guarded their brothers. The 2nd party joined him and performed bowing and prostration with him. All the people were in prayer but they were guarding one another during the prayer. Volume 2, Book 14, number 67. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. On the day of the Khandak Umar came, cursing the disbelievers of Quraysh and said, O Allah's apostle, I have not offered the Asr prayer and the sun is set. The Prophet replied, by Allah, I too have not offered the prayer yet. The Prophet then went to Buthan, performed ablution and performed the Asr prayer after the sun had set and then offered the Maghrib prayer after it. Volume 2, Book 14, number 68, narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's apostle, p.b.u.h, offered the Fajr prayer when it was still dark. Then he rode and said, Allah Akbar. Khaybar is ruined. When we approach near to a nation, the most unfortunate is the mourning of those who have been warned. The people came out into the streets saying, Muhammad and his army. Allah's apostle vanquished them by force and their warriors were killed. The children and women were taken as captives. Safiya was taken by Dihya al-Kalbi and later she belonged to Allah's apostle Go, who married her and her mar was her manumission. As narrated by Ibn Umar. Once a person asked Allah's apostle about the night prayer. Allah's apostle replied, the night prayer is offered as 2 rakat followed by 2 rakat and so on, and if anyone is afraid of the approaching dawn, Fajr prayer, he should pray 1 rakah, and this will be a witr for all the rakat which he has prayed before. Nafi told that Abdullah bin Umar used to say taslim between the first, 2 rakat and the 3rd, odd one in the Witr Prayer, when he wanted to attend to a certain matter, during that interval between the rakat. Volume 2, Book 16, number 106, narrated by Ibn Abbas. Once I passed the night in the house of Maimuna, his aunt. I slept across the bed while Allah's apostle and his wife slept lengthwise. The Prophet slept till midnight or nearly so and woke up rubbing his face and recited 10 verses from Surat Al-Imran. Allah's apostle went towards a leather skin and performed ablution in the most perfect way and then stood for the prayer. I did the same and stood beside him. The Prophet put his right hand on my head, twisted my ear and then prayed 2 rakat 5 times and then ended his prayer with witr. He laid down till the mueddin came, then he stood up and offered 2 rakat, sunnah of Fajr prayer, and then went out and offered the Fajr prayer. Volume 2, Book 16, number 107, narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. The Prophet said, night prayer is offered as 2 rakat followed by 2 rakat and so on, and if you want to finish it, pray only 1 rakah, which will be witr for all the previous rakat. Al-Qasim said, since we attained the age of puberty we have seen some people offering a 3 rakat prayer as witr and all that is permissible. I hope there will be no harm in it. Volume 2, Book 16, number 108, narrated by Aisha. Allah's apostle used to pray 11 rakat at night and that was his night prayer, and each of his prostrations lasted for a period enough for one of you to recite 50 verses before Allah's apostle raised his head. He also used to pray 2 rakat, sunnah, before the compulsory Fajr prayer, and then lie down on his right side till the muaddin came to him for the prayer. Volume 2, Book 16, number 109, narrated by Anas bin Sirin. I asked Ibn Umar, what is your opinion about the 2 rakat before the Fajr compulsory prayer, as to prolonging the recitation in them? He said, The Prophet, p.b.u.h, used to pray at night 2 rakat followed by 2 and so on and end the prayer by 1 rakah witr. He used to offer 2 rakat before the Fajr prayer immediately after the Adhan. Hamad, the sub-narrator, said, that meant that he prayed quickly. Volume 2, Book 16, number 110, narrated by Aisha, Allah's Apostle, offered Witr prayer at different nights at various hours extending from the Isha prayer up to the last hour of the night. Volume 2, Book 16, number 111, narrated by Aisha, the Prophet, p.b.u.h, used to offer his night prayer while I was sleeping across in his bed. Whenever he intended to offer the Witr prayer, he used to wake me up and I would offer the Witr prayer too. Volume 2, Book 16, number 112, narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, the Prophet, p.b.u.h, said, make S your last prayer at night. Volume 2, Book 16, number 113, narrated by Sa'id bin Yasar. I was going to Mecca in the company of Abdullah bin Umar, and when I apprehended the approaching dawn, I dismounted and offered the Witr prayer and then joined him. Abdullah bin Umar said, where have you been? I replied, I apprehended the approaching dawn, so I dismounted and prayed the Witr prayer. Abdullah said, isn't it sufficient for you to follow the good example of Allah's Apostle? I replied, yes, by Allah. He said, Allah's Apostle used to pray Witr on the back of the camel, while on a journey. Volume 2, Book 16, number 114, narrated by Ibn Umar, the Prophet used to offer nawafil prayers on his rahila, mount, facing its direction by signals, but not the compulsory prayer. He also used to pray Witr on his mount, rahila. Volume 2, Book 16, number 115, narrated by Muhammad bin Sirin. Anas was asked, did the Prophet recite Qunut in the Fajr prayer? Anas replied in the affirmative. He was further asked, did he recite Qunut before bowing? Anas replied, he recited Qunut after bowing for some time, for 1 month. Volume 2, Book 16, number 116, narrated by Asim. I asked Anas bin Malik about the Qunut. Anas replied, definitely it was recited. I asked, before bowing or after it? Anas replied, before bowing. I added, so-and-so has told me that you had informed him that it had been after bowing. Anas said, he told an untruth, that is, was mistaken, according to the Hijazi dialect. Allah's Apostle recited Qunut after bowing for a period of 1 month. Anas added, the Prophet sent about 70 men, who knew the Quran by heart, towards the pagans, of Najd, who were less than they in number, and there was a peace treaty between them and Allah's apostles, but the pagans broke the treaty and killed the 70 men, so Allah's apostle recited Qunut for a period of 1 month asking Allah to punish them. Volume 2, Book 16, number 117, narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet recited Qunut for 1 month in the Fajr prayer, asking Allah to punish the tribes of Ral and Dakwan. Volume 2, Book 16, number 118, narrated by Anas. The Qunut used to be recited in the Maghrib and the Fajr prayers. Volume 2, Book 19, number 173, narrated by Abdullah bin Masud. The Prophet recited Surat an-Najm 103 at Mecca, and prostrated while reciting it, and those who were with him did the same, except an old man who took a handful of small stones or earth, and lifted it to his forehead and said, this is sufficient for me. Later on, I saw him killed as a non-believer. Volume 2, Book 19, number 174, narrated by Abu Hurairah. On Fridays the Prophet used to recite Alf Lam Mim Tanzil as-Sajda in the first rakah, and Hal Ata Alal Insani, that is Surat ad-Dar, el-Ikhtiyax, in the second rakah, in the Fajr prayer. Volume 2, Book 19, number 175, narrated by Ibn Abbas. The prostration of Sa'd is not a compulsory one, but I saw the Prophet prostrating while reciting it. Volume 2, Book 19, number 176, narrated by Abdullah bin Masud. The Prophet recited Surat an-Najm 53, and prostrated while reciting it, and all the people prostrated, and a man amongst the people took a handful of stones or earth and raised it to his face and said, this is sufficient for me. Later on I saw him killed as a Nobel ever. Volume 2, Book 19, number 177, narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet. I prostrated while reciting an-Najm, and with him prostrated the Muslims, the pagans, the jinns, and all human beings. Volume 2, Book 19, number 178, narrated by Atta bin Yasar. I asked Zayd bin Thabit about prostration, on which he said that he had recited An-Najm before the Prophet, yet he, the Prophet, had not performed a prostration. Volume 2, Book 19, number 179, narrated by Zayd bin Thabit. I recited An-Najm before the Prophet, yet he did not perform a prostration. Volume 2, Book 19, number 180, narrated by Abu Salma. I saw Abu Huraira reciting Ida Sama Unshakat, and he prostrated during its recitation. I asked Abu Huraira, "Didn't I see you prostrating?" Abu Huraira said, "Had I not seen the Prophet prostrating, I would not have prostrated." Volume 2, Book 19, number 181, narrated by Ibn Umar. When the Prophet recited a surah that contained the prostration, he would prostrate and we would do the same, and some of us, because of the heavy rush, could not find a place for prostration. Volume 2, Book 19, number 182, narrated by Ibn Umar. When the Prophet recited Surat as-Sajda and we were with him, he would prostrate and we also would prostrate with him, and some of us, because of the heavy rush, would not find a place for our foreheads to prostrate on. Volume 2, Book 19, number 183, narrated by Rabia, Umar bin al-Khattab, recited Surat an-Nahl on a Friday on the pulpit, and when he reached the verse of Sajda, he got down from the pulpit and prostrated, and the people also prostrated. The next Friday, Umar bin al-Khattab recited the same surah, and when he reached the verse of Sajda, he said, "O people, when we recite the verses of Sajda during the sermon, whoever prostrates does the right thing, yet it is no sin for the one who does not prostrate." And Umar did not prostrate that day. Added Ibn Umar, Allah has not made the prostration of recitation compulsory, but if we wish we can do it. Volume 2, Book 19, number 184, narrated by Abu Rafi. I offered the Isha prayer behind Abu Huraira, and he recited Ida Sama Unshakat and prostrated. I said, "What is this?" Abu Huraira said, "I prostrated behind Abu al-Qasim, and I will do the same till I meet him." Volume 2, Book 19, number 185, narrated by Ibn Umar. Whenever the Prophet recited the surah which contained the prostration of recitation, he used to prostrate, and then we too would prostrate, and some of us did not find a place for prostration. Volume 2, Book 20, number 186, narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet once stayed for 19 days and prayed shortened prayers. So when we led and stayed for 19 days, we used to shorten the prayer, but if we traveled and stayed for a longer period, we used to offer the full prayer. Volume 2, Book 20, number 187, narrated by Yahya bin Ishaq. I heard Anas saying, "We traveled with the Prophet from Medina to Mecca, and offered 2 rakat for every prayer, till we returned to Medina." I said, "Did you stay for a while in Mecca?" He replied, "We stayed in Mecca for 10 days. Volume 2, Book 20, number 188, narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. I offered the prayer with the Prophet Abu Bakr and Umar at Mina, and it was of 2 rakat. Uthman in the early days of his caliphate did the same, but later on he started praying the full prayer. Volume 2, Book 20, number 189, narrated by Haritha bin Wahab, the Prophet. I led us in the prayer at Mina during the peace period by offering 2 rakat. Volume 2, Book 20, number 190, narrated by Abdur Rahman bin Yazid. We offered a 4 rakat prayer at Mina behind Ibn Affan.